Rohit Allena from University of Houston. The topic of the talk will be confident risk agreements and investments using machine learning uncertainties. Please. Go.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to thank the organizers for including the people in the program. First of all, it's a pleasure presenting before Professor Yuni and Professor Yu. I've always looked up to the work. Before going into the paper, recent studies apply machine learning to forecast stock returns. However, not much is known about the confidence intervals or variance around the return forecast made by machine learning models. So in this paper, I estimate confidence intervals around the return forecast made by machine learning models and show how this information will be used to form better trading strategies. So to put it in the context, in an influential work, Yu, Kelly, and Zhu document that machine learning models outperform linear models in forecasting stock returns out of that. However, not much is known about the confidence intervals around the return forecast made by machine learning models. And in fact, this question could be posed at various levels. One can ask and aggregate how precise are the return forecasts, and can we exactly identify which stock return forecasts are more precisely measured by machine learning models and which ones are not. For instance, Pharma and French document that expected return estimates that we get from traditional linear models are unavoidably imprecise. The reason is that there are a lot of parameters to estimate, and therefore getting expected return estimates would be highly imprecise. And given that forecasting with machine learning models also involve a lot of parameters, it is important to estimate the confidence intervals around machine learning models. So in this paper, I explicitly derive confidence intervals around return forecast made by a wide range of machine learning models, starting with linear models, penalized linear models, and neural networks. Whereas confidence intervals for traditional linear models are available in the literature, those of highly sophisticated machine learning models are not. I tackle this challenge by proving that these machine learning models have an equivalent racial interpretation whose posterior densities are easily estimated. Therefore, I estimate the confidence intervals of forecast variations using the posterior densities of comparable Bayesian models. So the main highlights of this paper's confidence intervals is that the procedure is robust to the cross-sectional dependency of returns. And more importantly, I would be able to estimate forecast variances simultaneously with forecast. For example, one way of estimating confidence intervals is to use a bootstrap technique, but that procedure takes forever. For example, in bootstrap, once we have the data, we need to bootstrap the data, retrain the machine learning model, again bootstrap the data, retrain the machine learning model and bootstrap data, and this takes forever. But because of the Bayesian connection, I show that I'm able to simultaneously estimate return forecast and forecast confidence intervals without additional computational cost. And I would also be able to estimate stock level and portfolio level or confidence intervals around stock level and portfolio level return forecast. And there are various applications of this confidence intervals. For example, one could use it to conduct cost of capital decisions. But the novelty of this paper is that I show that information from this confidence intervals can be used to form better trading strategies. So let me explain how information from this confidence intervals can be used to form better trading strategies. For example, the standard procedure of forming a trading strategy is a simple high-low trading strategy. That is, if we have a cutoff return forecast, then what the traditional indicator does is go along on the top 10% of the stock that have high return forecast and short the bottom 10% of the stock that have low return forecast. And these strategies tend to do well because return forecast proxy for next period return. In this paper, I show that whereas the written forecast proxies for the next period return, the confidence interval around it or the forecast variances would proxy for future forecast period. For instance, if a strong written forecast has big variance around it, then that forecast is more likely to have high forecast period. The reason is that the total expected trade forecast can be written as sum of trade bad and variance, and because machine learning models entail non-linear functions, they are super flexible, the bias component would be relatively low related to the variance component. And therefore, one could use ex-ante variances as a proxy for future forecast period. And in this paper, I explored this predictability and come up with confident allocating strategies. So what we do is that once we stock based on the written forecast, then instead of going long on all stocks that have high written forecasts, I would just go long on those stocks that have high written forecasts and those are precisely measured. Likewise, instead of shorting all stocks that have low written forecasts, I would just short those stocks that have low written forecasts and those are precisely measured. Because I'm deliberately excluding stocks that are imprecisely forecasted, I show that the trading strategies would be able to minimize exposed misclassification error, and therefore it would be able to deliver higher returns and higher sharp ratios out of that. I think the main interesting part of this trading strategy is that the confident high-low trading strategies, remember, these strategies sort on ex-ante variances. So we should expect that if any, this trading strategy should improve the variance. But why should it improve the expected returns out of sample? Let me give you a simple example demonstrating how the confident high-low trading strategy can improve expected returns out of sample. For example, consider two stocks, A and B, with true expected returns UA and UB, and let's just say UA is greater than UB. And suppose the goal is to form a high-low trading strategy, that is to always go long on the stock that has high expected returns and go short on the stock that has low expected returns. If we know what the two expected returns are, then I would always go long on A, go short on B, and I will get a positive expected return of UA minus UB. But we do not know what the two expected returns are, and that is the reason why we implement various econometric models. And now let us say UA hat and UB hat are two unbiased written forecasts that we get from a machine learning model or any other model that we think of. And since UA and UB are unknown, we need to form trading strategies based on UA hat and UB hat. Now, if we form a high-low trading strategy based on UA hat and UB hat, then the expected return of the high-low trading strategy would be I would go long on A and go short on B only if UA hat turns out to be greater than UB hat. But I mistakenly put stock B in the long position and mistakenly put stock A in the short position if UB hat turns out to be greater than UA hat. And in fact, if we solve for this, you can see that expected high-low returns monotonically decreases with the precision of risk premium measurements. For example, in one history, if you know what the two expected returns are, I would always go long on it, always go short on B. I would get the maximum possible spread return of UA minus UB. And in another extreme case, the written forecasts are very imprecise, then 50% of the times I mistakenly put B in the long position, A in the short position, and I will get a zero expected return. And consistent with this intuition, I find that the confident high-low trading strategies that are formed on various machine learning models and linear models will deliver superior returns. So I would like to emphasize that these trading strategies deliver predominantly gains to the machine learning models or sophisticated machine learning models than simple linear models. The reason is that note that this confident high-low trading strategies work only because ex-ante forecast variances proxy for future forecast errors. If the forecast are not bad, then the confident high-low trading strategies may not deliver gains. And for forecast based on neural networks, we will see that the confident hybrid trading strategy clearly outperforms all other competing trading strategies. And the low confident hybrid trading strategy that that takes long to on intrasalary forecast and stock returns and intrasalary and take short positions on intrasalary predicted stock returns would deliver significantly more returns and sharper order standard. The same is true for forecast based on macro and Google and models as well. The confident high-low trading strategy clearly outperforms the traditional high-low trading strategy and other benchmark strategies that we can think of. But the main graph that I'd like to show you and simulate a written graph. So this shows the trading performance of trading strategies, simulate the returns of trading strategies of different trading strategies. The blue line indicates the confident high-low trading strategy, and the yellow represents low confident high-low trading strategy. The difference between confident and low confident represents the value of incorporating confidence intervals into trading strategy. And you can clearly see that this difference is quite big for forecast based on neural networks. But for forecast based on simple linear models, the difference is not as big as we saw for neural networks. The reason is that for trading strategies that are based on linear models, the bias component will be have a relatively higher bias component. And for trading strategies based on based on Lasso, you will see that the difference is still higher, but it is between linear models and neural networks. And I told you that this confident high-low trading strategy is what because ex ante forecast variances proxy for future forecast variables, and I empirically validate this. For example, every month I saw stock based on the ex ante principle. These are the subset of stocks that are more confidently predicted by models. These are the subset of stocks that are least confidently predicted by models. And I plot their exposed out of sample mean square error. And you clearly see that stocks that are more precisely predicted by models also have low mean square error. And this relation is much deeper for neural networks, suggesting that ex ante forecast variances would be more informative about future forecast variables for neural networks. So the main takeaway of the paper is that in addition to stock and forecasts, incorporating confidence intervals, information from confidence intervals help. And these confident high-low trading strategies, in fact, economically can be interpreted as optimal trading strategies of ambiguity averse investment. For example, if an investor has maximum preference utility, then his or her trading strategies would exactly reduce the confident high-low trading strategy. And the purpose of trading strategy is focused to various specifications as well. So before presenting you exactly how to estimate this confidence interval, let me show you a couple of empirical results. So on aggregate, the time series of this ex ante forecast variances seem to reflect time varying market uncertainty. And then one could ask, why is it that confidence intervals that come out of nowhere from neural networks, why should they capture stock market uncertainty? The reason is that during the times of crisis, the explanatory variables that we use to make stock trading forecasts, those explanatory variables deviate significantly from those variables that were initially used for fitting engineering models. And as a result, naturally, the stock trading forecast would have high forecast variances during the times of crisis. And in the cross section, I find that models disagree in terms of forecast variances. For example, macro models predict one system of stock levels, but neural networks predict another system of stock levels. And empirically, this result is consistent with a recent paper by Qiao and Raven, where they show that one asset pricing model may not fit all asset. Uh, Finally, so I made three contributions in the video. So the first contribution is in terms of the portfolio formation. Instead of high-low trading strategy, one can also use confident high-low trading strategy. And in terms of statistics contribution, I adapt or I generalize or extend knowledge when who know how to estimate confidence intervals for forecast from neural networks along several dimensions. For example, Garland reference show how to estimate forecast, individual forecast variance. But for me, it is also important to compute joint forecast variance as well. For example, if you have stock and forecast of Apple, stock and forecast of Tesla, what is the joint covariance of Apple and Tesla stock and forecast? So in this paper, I show how to estimate the joint covariance as well. And I also know how to derive portfolio standard errors as well, and accommodate for the non-identity. And likewise, I also contribute to the LASCO-based confidence intervals, for example, Qiao and George Tesla and his co-authors show how to estimate confidence intervals for LASCO-based model using the Bayesian framework. I extend that framework in the non-ID setting. And I also show how to estimate the joint covariance of different data forecasts. So let me quickly explain how we can estimate confidence intervals for forecast from based model. So or in general penalized linear models. So under penalized linear models, we can write returns as a linear function of set of characteristics. And the goal is to estimate the unknown parameters beta by solving for this penalized equation. This is the penalized least square with the penalty. Then under the initial assumption, the traditional assumption is that the residuals are ID. And under the initial assumption that the residuals follow a normal distribution, Q and his authors document that this ID-based estimator is identical to the posterior mode of emission distribution under the double exponential trial of beta. So the posterior density can be easily estimated using this sampling. So one can easily use the Bayesian posterior variance as a proxy for the frequent counterpart. When the residuals are not handy, it will be so what I do is that when the residuals are not handy, I model these residuals using the factor model, similar to Kasarani or Y or recent work with math. So more importantly, when the residuals are not handy, so usual ID-based estimators that we get by numerical penalized least square would not only be inefficient, but would also not satisfy oracle problems. So this was the result established by time and so forth. So during the non-ID setting, we should focus on penalized likelihood estimator instead of penalized least square estimator. So what I proved in the paper is that this penalized likelihood estimator is identical to the Bayesian posterior mode and in the same double exponential trial. And in the paper, I give an exact algorithm how to derive the posterior density of the patient density. So using a posterior density, one will be able to estimate the confidence interval for forecast based on latter models. And for forecast based on neural networks, let me just give you a big picture before going into the details. So neural networks, just like linear models, are some kind of parametric functions, right? They accommodate non-linear functions, and the way to estimate the parameters is to minimize square errors, but such parameters tend to overfit, and therefore researchers use various visualization. So in an inferential work, Garland document that neural networks that entail one specific regularization known as normal have a Bayesian interpretation whose posterior densities again are very easily estimable. I mean, but easily estimable, I mean, I just need to trace the neural network works, and I will be able to simultaneously get forecast as well as forecast variances. So I use this approach. So let me give you how I estimate this confidence interval. So in general, neural networks has several layers. The first layer has all characteristics that we use to forecast results. The final layer is the final written forecast, and each element or each unit in the unit layer, what each unit does is it takes a linear combination of this and then simply non-linearly transforms it. So once I have each unit layer, the final forecast will simply be equal to the weighted average of all the forecasts. Or in other words, Excel returns can be explicitly modeled as this parametric form using neural networks. So this is some insight that I would like to tell. This insight that I borrowed from Jansen when he presented at University of Houston. So when we can express returns as one particular parametric form for neural networks, why do we call forecast from neural networks as black box? Well, the reason is that even though we can write this as a particular parametric function, in order to estimate this parameter, the computer makes a lot of adjustments. For example, computer uses early toppings, stochastic variations, so on and so forth. And as a result, forecasts from neural networks are considered as black box, not because they cannot be expressed as parametric form. In fact, all neural network forecasts can be written as parametric form. It's just that the way that we estimate is black box. So how do we estimate these parameters? For example, if we impose accurate relation, we minimize by minimizing. So we estimate the parameters by minimizing penalized least square for the ID case. But it is not possible to solve this in the closed form. So what we do is that we start with an initial guess on the parameters, and then we feed each observation one at a time. So what we do is that I take one observation, update the parameters, take next observation, further update the parameters, and so on and so forth. And for neural networks, the entire crossword realization, how we estimate the parameters is that while feeding each observation one at a time, while updating these parameters, I randomly put some of these weights to zero. Update the parameters, go to the next observation. Again, I randomly put some of these observations and update the parameters, and so on and so forth. Or in other words, neural networks that entire proper and L2 realization optimize this particular equation. So this equation can be estimated using simple Python code. So once we have this estimated parameters, given the new set of characteristics, all that we need to do is to simply plug in those estimated parameters and generate that forecast. Now, how do we get the confidence intervals around it? This is very simple. So once we have all the estimated parameters, all that we need to do is to simply put or simply make some of these parameters to zero, get a different forecast. Again, make some of the parameters to zero, get a different forecast, and simply take the standard deviation of it. So I'm not retraining the model again. What I did is that with the given set of estimated parameters, I'm randomly putting some of the parameters to zero, getting a different forecast, randomly putting some of the parameters to zero, getting a different forecast, and I simply take the standard deviation of it, and this would approximately be equal to the Bayesian posterior distance of comparable Bayesian neural network, or comparable Bayesian neural network. And likewise, for the portfolio, it's the same. So what we need to do is estimate return forecast of each individual stock, then simply make some of the parameters to be zero, make sure that all these parameters to be zero are constant across all stocks. That way it captures the cross-sectional dependence operators and get the forecast of the entire portfolio, make some of the parameters to be zero, get the portfolio, get the portfolio forecast, and simply take the standard deviation. So how do we validate whether this confidence intervals are valid? Well, I do a simulation. So what I do is that I simulate returns from neural network model. Then if this forecast and this forecast confidence interval is correct, then the forecast or the 95% or any X% confidence intervals that we form from this forecast and forecast from the forecast variance should cover the true simulated expected returns and profit. For example, if you take the 95%, perform the 95% confidence interval, then it covers the true simulated probability or true expected returns almost 95% of the time. So this should happen not just for 95%, this should happen even for 1%. For example, if we take the forecast variance wide enough, then any confidence interval will cover it. So we need to make sure that every level has appropriate coverage probability, and the simulations confirm that this could be the first one. For the non-linear case, it's the same thing. So I model the signals in the pattern model, and then instead of considering returns, we come up with something orthogonalized return and show how this formula can be adapted to form to get estimates of forecast variance. So overall, the paper has three main takeaways. So I show how to estimate the confidence intervals of risk premium forecasts that are based on various machine learning models, and based on the precision of the risk premium forecasts, I come up with neural trading strategies, confident value trading strategies, and these trading strategies perform well as long as the bad form of it is dominated by the base component, or it was predominating well for sophisticated machine learning models than for simple linear models that may have potential biases.
We talked very interesting. So let's see if I talk to Xiao to contribute. All right, we're in business. Lag. All right, well, it's a pleasure to discuss the paper by Rohit's confidence with premiums and investments using machine learning uncertainty. Rohit gave a pretty thorough treatment of the paper already, so I'm just going to focus on the high-level ideas here. So the paper derives ex-ante confidence intervals for risk premium forecast, right, for a different set of models, including the low 2050 model, some penalized linear models, as well as neural networks. And there's a whole insight in the paper that these risk premium forecasts can be reinterpreted as approximations of Bayesian methods. And under such Bayesian interpretation, we can then easily estimate the posterior distribution to get an uncertainty measure. With this uncertainty measure at hand, what Rohit is going to do is form portfolios based on forecast confidence and key variance of these forecasts, and then form a long-short strategy using these return forecasts. But only for the most confidently estimated stocks, not for the entire cross-section of stocks. And the paper showed that this is going to outperform alternatives that don't consider the confidence level of these forecasts. The paper also includes a bunch of robustness checks for portfolio performance to make sure the outperformance is robust, including looking at only large cap stocks, including transaction costs, different ways to use and so on. This paper makes several contributions, and I like to highlight some of these. First and foremost, it's quite important to focus on forecasting strategy. These machine learning models that we use are not quite like the traditional econometric models, in that the more traditional econometric models have really quite solid theoretical foundation. Whereas these machine learning models have less extensive theoretical development. This is the point we'll come back to shortly. I think a main contribution paper is this reinterpretation of machine learning methods as Bayesian methods. This links machine learning methods to a family of models that have a much more developed theory. So this sort of relates to the first points. And also it provides us a way to compute these confidence intervals, which wasn't really, we're not really able to do, for example, these neural networks. Of course, also existing, other existing machine learning papers in finance that try to forecast returns. And typically these papers try to forecast returns separately. If you want to look at a Tesla return versus an Apple return, these are separate forecasts. But of course, we know cross-section stocks are correlated, right? There's a market factor and probably several other common factors as well. So Rohit actually allows for non-linear DGPs so that we can allow for arbitrary cross-sectional dependence in making forecasts. This is the technical contribution. And then the final one I want to highlight here is that when we take these forecast confidence intervals and we try to form portfolios, we're identifying the sharpest forecasts for these, especially for these more complex models. So we're not just taking the highest return forecast as previous papers are doing. What we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on stocks that have the lowest forecast variance. We're still going to forecast the we're still going to form a long-short strategy, but it's going to be much more targeted. I'd like to come back to that first point a little bit more. Machine learning has grown so popular in so many different areas recently. And I would argue that the theory of machine learning has not entirely caught up with the empirical success that we've seen. We've seen incredible, amazing performance in different areas. For example, in images or text with sequential data. But there's some companies missing here. There is limited theory to tell us, one, whether these results would generalize to other settings, and two, how well we're doing relative to some ideal conditions. On this first point, if we change the setting for example, convolutional neural networks work well for images, but there's limited guarantee that it's going to work well if we change the setting. On the second point, we've seen something like ChatGPT already doing amazing things, mimicking an intelligent human with infinite, almost infinite data and infinite information. But how well is it doing compared to its potential? Is it 2% there? Is it 90% there? We don't really have any idea how far we're off of. So if we contrast this to more traditional methods, we don't really have something like the equivalent of asymptotics. Right? These are theoretical guarantees that a method is going to work under some particular set of assumptions. So to give two almost trivial examples from first year graduate school, the Hamilton Harmonic theory tells us that ordinary least squares has the lowest sampling error among the entire class of unbiased linear estimators. So among this class of estimators, ordinary least squares can do the best. The premier low bound is another example by the inverse sufficient information is the lower bound on the variance estimator. And we like to use math likelihood because it achieves the premier lower bound. Right? So these statements can, I think, largely explain why things like OLS and MLE have been so popular. We know under what conditions these work. And if we change some of these conditions, how the estimators, how they behave, how their behavior will be a bit different. We don't necessarily have these statements for machine learning methods, certainly not very complete at best. And I think what Rohit is sort of taking a step in that direction. My first comment is on the source of the portfolio performance improvement. Where Rohit effectively does is a double sort, right? Based on expected return forecasts as well as on the confidence of the forecast. And we find that if we zoom in on those confidence stocks, then we can get a better Sharpe ratio on higher expected returns. So let's think about what a double sort typically does. Right? If we have a traditional portfolio sort based on the characteristics, these are proxies of expected returns. These are not direct forecasts of the expected returns. Right? If we do a portfolio sort on the book to market ratio, this is a noisy forecast of expected returns. And we do get an average return stream. So of course, the natural question is, why are we trying to noisy forecasts? So for something that's correlated, why don't we directly forecast returns? So what do we get if we directly forecast returns? Well, we use largest set of variances for one. But we can't really do portfolio sorts with more than maybe 3 or 4 characteristics. But we can have 50 characteristics in any sort of forecasting model. So we can reduce the bias of the forecast if we include a larger set of characteristics. And how the variance of the forecast changes depends on the joint distribution of the characteristics and the outcome, our return error. If we have more characteristics, the model becomes more complex, has more model parameters, and typically we think the forecast variance is going to increase in this case. However, if these characteristics are include some if either return forecast is diversify one another, then it's possible to get a variance reduction. So a simple example here is if we include value and momentum in our forecast, there's no value and momentum forecast expected return streams that are negatively correlated. So by including both, we can potentially reduce the variance part of every return forecast. So whether we do better when we directly forecast returns compared to strong characteristics sort of depends on the bias variance trade-off. And what previous machine learning papers have shown is that we can reduce the overall forecast error, or we can reduce the bias, and that reduction in bias is not offset by a commensurate increase in variance, such that we do reduce the overall forecast error if we use these methods. So when we talk about the smaller forecast error, often we're looking at L sample R squared, right? So what previous machine learning papers, including lots of Gaussian work, has shown us is that we do get larger L sample R squares for these nonlinear models. And if we sort on expected return forecasts, we do get better portfolio. L sample R squared is based on mean squared error, which is a least square bias variance. So let's think about the bias variance trade-off a bit more. Suppose we have two models, right? The simple one, the ordinary least squares, and the more complex one, more parameters, let's say a neural network. In terms of the forecasting targets, if we take that as a parameter, then the bias of the simpler model is expected to be higher than the bias of the more complex model. It's not able to capture as a big of a space in terms of potential forecasts. At the same time, the variance of the simpler model is going to be smaller compared to the variance of the larger, right? And this, I think, partially for this reason, we have the parsimonies in classical econometrics. And the overall forecast error is going to be a combination of these components. It's going to be variance plus observed bias. And when we compare these two models at different complexity levels, what the existing literature tells us is that the mean square error of the more complex network is smaller. So the bias reduction is not offset again, right, by this increase in variance. And the inside of this paper, what Rohit does is he sort of goes a step further. Right, we hold the bias from constant, right, provided there's not a strong correlation between bias and variance in the cross-section of stock. But we hold bias constant, and we pick the stock that has the lowest forecast variance, then we can improve the mean square error. So we can actually forecast more precisely. My second comment is so related to the double sorts. Or if we think about the typical double source, we will typically produce greater return spread compared to univariate, provided both characteristics are correlated with expected returns. Right, so if you take all the stocks and we do a univariate from the market ratio, the high local market stocks on average outperform the low local market stocks, and we get an average return spread. But if we further explore our momentum, then we get a larger average return spread in the high local market, high momentum portfolio compared to the low local market, low momentum portfolio. I think that part is not necessarily surprising. And the Sharpe ratio here is not necessarily higher though for the double sort versus the universe. And the idea here is diversification is not really related to the number of stocks. So when we do these portfolio sorts, the stocks co-move. So it's also about the common components in these returns. If you have a portfolio of 100 technology stocks, your portfolio is not well diversified compared to a portfolio of 25 stocks allocated across sectors. But we do have to care about this co-movement. And what we empirically observed is these characteristics sort of are associated with co-movement. All the high local market stocks tend to co-move, such that there's a limit to the Sharpe ratio that you can get when we need these scores. In fact, if we interpret these as risk-based pricing, as risk factors, then we do require to co-movement. If the high local market stocks didn't co-move, we can form a well-diversified portfolio of only idiosyncratic risks. So that washes out. But then we still have higher expected returns. So that is often like an arbitrage. Now, coming back to this paper, what we see is that a double sort on return forecast and the confidence of these forecasts show a higher average return. Right? Possibly this is expected given the intuition we talked about on the previous slide. And we also see Sharpe ratios in this paper, which I think is not necessarily guaranteed. Because the portfolio that you construct with only the high confidence forecast is going to be a smaller portfolio in terms of the number of stocks. So this implies that we're still getting diversification in the smaller portfolio of only high confidence stocks. In other words, there doesn't seem to be a factor structuring forecast uncertainty. Whatever is causing cross-sectional differences in forecast uncertainty doesn't seem to have a systematic component. Right? So to say this another way, the stocks that have low forecast uncertainty don't look like a co-move very much. So to test this intuition, we can just do something very simple. See a universe on just your confidence intervals, forget the expected return forecasts, and let's check these portfolios. Presumably, we wouldn't find any relation with respect to the average return, but possibly Sharpe ratio will differ depending on the co-move and the forecast uncertainty based on the confidence level. And also, from the higher Sharpe ratios, I think a fairly direct implication is that the Hansen-Jack down in this paper is tighter compared to other existing machine learning papers. And as an implication, stochastic discount factor is in fact more volatile. I also have a couple of smaller comments. What the author finds is that forecast variances are not correlated across different models in the cross-section. And there's an implication in the paper, I'm quoting the paper here, a unified asset pricing model may not be sufficient to forecast risk premiums small R. I wonder if this is slightly strong and whether this is entirely warranted from this lack of correlation, because these statistical models are approximations, right? They're not necessarily informative about the data generating process. So even if we do have a unified asset pricing model that is sufficient to forecast all stocks, it's possible that these approximations would still differ. Right? To put it in a different way, I think the lack of correlation in the cross-section of forecast variances may be more reflective of statistical models than the underlying data generating process. I also think perhaps it's not that surprising that XNP variances predict X most for forecast errors. This is one that emphasized throughout the paper. As we saw from the breakdown of mean square error as a combination of square bias and variance, if we look at the cross-section stocks, if we hold the bias constants, then of course mean square error is proportional to the ex-ante variance. In fact, I think it'd be more surprising if ex-ante variances didn't predict ex-post square forecast error, because that would mean for stock that has a high ex-ante variance, its bias is sufficiently low, such that its ex-ante variance and its ex-post square forecast error are uncorrelated. And it's not clear why we should have such a strong correlation in the cross-section between your ex-ante variance and your bias. To summarize, overall, I thought this was a great paper, very intriguing, lots of rich empirical results and theoretical results. There's a novel angle of the paper that previous machine learning papers in finance don't really directly tackle, which allows the paper to make a meaningful contribution to the literature. And I think taking a step towards quantifying the uncertainty of machine learning models is a massive question. And certainly probably will not be able to be fully addressed in one paper. In this particular paper, all the uncertainty is folded into the forecasting target. We're taking expected return forecast as parameters. This is in contrast to Professor Louis' talk earlier, when we're trying to quantify the bias, not so much the variance, of the parameters themselves. So here, we care about forecasting. We don't really care about inputs to parameters. Whereas the talk earlier this morning, Professor Louis, my understanding, didn't really care about forecasting, care more about inputs. So of course, this is the big question, right? Trying to put more theory behind machine learning models, and I think it's fantastic to see a paper take a step in this direction. Of course, it doesn't resolve all the issues of physical complete theory of machine learning. And it'd be great to see more papers trying to tackle this problem. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very many questions. Rohit, you want to respond?
Yeah, I totally agree with incomplete theory of machine learning. So I still think that this is probably the first step. And your comment regarding the diversification benefit, the paper, I also analyzed something known as regularized mean variance strategies that tend to maximize our sample sharp ratio. So even regularized mean variance strategies outperform the traditional hybrid strategies. But one of the interesting results that I find is that these mean variance trading strategies do not do that related to the confident hybrid strategies. And one of the reasons is that I also show on the paper that these confident hybrid strategies can also be interpreted as mean variance trading strategies, but with adaptive lasso analysis, where you would put more weights on more weights whenever forecast uncertainties is high. But whereas the normal regularized mean variance strategy is more like a regular lasso-based penalty that you impose on mean variance weights. Perhaps that is probably one of the reasons. So I think the main point of the paper is to show that incorporating information from confidence intervals is important. That's the main thing. And any questions? Yes.
So I guess we thought it would be useful if you can give us some understanding of which type of law you can actually make more precisely that will be used in the law. But on my understanding, it will depend on what our objective is and even what stock we include in this sample training for activation for the power. And it should be totally complete all that. There are complete ways of dividing on stock. Set of stock, you can use one set of characteristics, but another set of stock, you can use a different not modeling that, we're looking right from data. And then somebody did something, say, this is outcome, we're not going to use that, and this is 0, and we need to recalibrate that part of the law. I just want to point out that when the dependent, right, follow up the decision, right, your confidence interval depends on the characteristics you use, the set of thoughts including this exercise, and maybe the possibility that not all thoughts are forecasted using the same set of it could be segmentation, right?
Right. I guess, I mean, there are like several questions that you asked. So the first question that I would like to say is that it would be very difficult to pinpoint and say, this is the characteristic that correlates with forecast variance. This is a machine, so you would see that a lot of characteristics interact with forecast variance. And the second question is that why is it that we use the same set of characteristics or same regression coefficients across our stocks? So this is because of the blends of dimensionality. Of course, different characteristics of different models, different set of stocks well. But if you use the common data, we will have something known as the blessings of dimensionality. That is, we use the entire tool to estimate the parameters more precisely. So this is the motivation. I believe that is also the motivation behind who can you choose for. And for me, yeah, because yes, the main point that we have to just extend that work. We use exactly the same setting as well and see whether information from confidence intervals can be used for
following that, maybe it's you can say your paper provide one methodology, one way of estimating the confidence interval. It could be further improve on both.
Right.
Anyway, the other part, I think, also following the discussion Xiao's point, it's not clear to me that once you use people like investors, if they use the set of thoughts that are precisely forecasted, somehow forming portfolio will give you either higher return on average. Okay, that practice is not clear to me, but on the Sharpe ratio, I agree it's not effective.
Yeah, Sharpe ratios definitely is not expected, but for analytically it happens for expected returns. For example, if you look at the stock return forecast, right? If the stock return forecast is high, it could be due to two reasons. One reason is that genuinely it has high expected returns, or the forecast itself is very noisy. And now what I do is that now if you look at all the stocks, all stocks with high return forecasts, I'm only picking those stocks that are in probability would have high expected returns and less noise. And therefore, I would be minimizing something known as the misclassification error, as in I will not wrongly allocate stocks in the long and short positions. And therefore, in our sample, I will get higher expected returns. But it so happens that the Sharpe ratio may be so if you have confident hybrid strategies, expected returns will increase. Variance may or may not increase. So ultimately, it's an empirical question, and I know that the confident and the traditional sorted-based portfolios have more of expected return increasing than variance variation. So the Sharpe ratio is also improved.
Can I make one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Now, this and many other people in this conference demonstrate how powerful certain techniques can sort of give us more variables, more data to analyze. And then I keep thinking about a person like, what's the purpose? Is it positive or normative? For example, do we think about classified industry using the measures that previous talked about? Really work that way, right? And if you can use machine learning tools to approximate how it works. But if people don't look at the graph, the pictures and think about how similar the photos are in buying industry. I don't know what's the justification for applying this method.
Yeah.
And I know I'm talking about the other people, but for your people also like maybe investor look at the result, your higher sharp ratio result, maybe they are interested in reading your paper more. But other than that, then it's only people who are like econometricians who are interested in this question, like machine learning forecast, how to give a confidence interval. That's kind of very interesting. But in terms of funding application, suppose you don't have that result, right? And the corresponding equation is right. Is there some other way, to sell the data? And do investors really, telling investors we should behave in certain way and somehow incorporate this confidence interval for the estimated risk premium in their portfolio choice. That's what I mean by how investors should be pushing this in either descriptive or topical, normative or topical way. But also how our researchers deal with data or certain questions using new techniques, and how investors was doing it in real time way back when. Okay? So that's a general thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the insight in general holds. I'm sure that people will be using confidence intervals as well, but whether this theoretical result or empirical result of paper translate in 90 models. So yeah, yeah. Any other questions?
All right, so if there's no more questions, let's thank all of the speakers and discussants for their time. It's very cool for the